Okay guys, chapter 21. The figure, a few metres away, but still only a smudged silhouette, remained at the gateway. Finn strained his eyes. It looked like it might be taking something, some small object from the portal. But what? Finn took another couple of steps forwards to try and see more clearly. His weapon aimed, finger trembling at the trigger, grimacing at every minor creak of his suit. Seemingly satisfied that its task was done, the creature stood back with a surprising ruffle through its torso. Finn knew he had to take a shot now or he would never get another chance. He took a deep breath to still his coursing adrenaline, steadied his left arm, felt the desiccator's trigger into the curve of his finger and counted down. 3, 2, 1. The creature glanced round, squinting through the grey. Finn realised he was seeing something strange. It was a human. A man, it seemed, wearing a long coat that hung loosely to his knees. Finn couldn't make out the face, which appeared to be almost fully covered by a scarf pulled up over the nose, and what he had thought to be a misshapen head was actually the wide brim of a hat that swept low across the man's brow. Finn exhaled, released the pressure of the trigger. Briefly, the gateway's golden light glinted off a pair of eyes. Then, with a final pulse and a gulp, the gateway imploded, folding in on itself instantly, leaving behind only a feeble yellow afterglow. The figure looked around one final time. Finn moved half a step forward to see more clearly. This turned out to be a very, very stupid thing to do. Finn's years of training as a legend hunter had been based on the not unreasonable notion that he would have a career hunting legends. He may not have been particularly agile or gifted or adept or any other variation on useful at the different types of combat needed to fight these creatures, but he knew all the theory. He could, in theory, take down a Dordlin. He could, in theory, decapitate a snarling Ophotaurus. He could, in theory, douse the fire of a chimera's breath. But he had worked hard to learn all he would need to know in order to become a legend hunter. Not once had he been warned that in the course of his career he might need to take on the role of human hunter. If he had known these things, it might have turned out a whole lot better. In that half step forward, Finn's toe caught the top of a thick piece of discarded rope that stretched across the pier. He stumbled slightly, gripping the trigger instinctively and sending a desiccator shot fizzing through the murk. In furious blue fire unfurled a net that nicked the edge of a man's hat and travelled on. An almighty crunch of destruction ripped through the grey fog, echoing round the harbour. Startled, the man turned and charged at him. Finn struggled to right himself quickly enough to aim again, and the man was upon him with almost immediately lifting him off the ground so that his feet kicked in the air pathetically. Finn wriggled and forced his feet onto the ground, where he pushed back. His weapon hung loose around his back as they wrestled. Close in, Finn clawed, swung, kicked at the stranger. He lost his balance as both of them slipped to the ground, his desiccator digging into his side. He tried to reach around for it, but he couldn't free it. But then he spied a piece of metal beside him, star-shaped, a fist weight. Finn stretched out a hand, grabbed it and slammed it hard into the man's neck. Eliciting a grunt of pain by the growl of anger as his attacker lifted Finn again and carried him to the edge of the harbour wall. Finn felt the man release his hold, then an unnerving plunging sensation. He hit the water hard. The freezing water rushed into his suit, his protective armour now an enemy, dragging him down below the sea. He fought his way to the surface, the cold and panic shocking his lungs, constricting his breathing quickly, tiring him out. He sank again, the seawater flooding his helmet, the rank salt and oil of the harbour lapping at his mouth. He rose again, wiping his visor open so that he could splutter a cry for help, yelling as he scrambled to stay above water, his head bent back to thrust his mouth and nose into the air. He slid below the sea again. the fight seeping from him, exhaustion taking hold, the heavy weight of the suit pulling on him. He tried again, pushing himself up, but his mouth felt the longing for comfort of the air for only a moment before he dropped down again. His eyes wide but unseen in the murk, his lungs screaming at him to let go. It was like a foot on his chest, arms wrapped round him, squeezing the life from him. Arms were wrapped around him. They let go. He felt someone grabbing at his hands, then around his head, searching for his shoulders. A fresh surge of panic and adrenaline shot through Finn. The attacker was here in the sea, ready to finish the job. Finn lashed out, pushing weak punches through the water. The hands kept at him, reaching below his shoulders again, grabbing him firmly under the arms and pulling him up. Finn now stopped fighting and allowed himself to be dragged to the surface, a hand reaching round his chin and holding it upwards so that all he could see was a weak sun poking through the clearing fog. But he could taste the air, crisp and pure. He gulped greedily, choking momentarily on water pouring off the rim of his helmet and down his throat. Finn felt himself being hauled onto the stony beach, where he fell forward, coughing and spitting up foul seawater. "You were almost done for there," said the rescuer. "Thought I wasn't going to be able to get you." Finn looked up to see Mr. Glad sitting beside him, panting with effort, water dripping heavily from his long hair and frayed suit. He spat a drop of seawater onto the stones. On the road behind them, a car screeched to a halt, and Finn's father jumped out and raced down towards the beach. "Look at me, Finn, look at me," his dad said, grabbing Finn's head and forcing him to make eye contact. "What happened?" Finn spluttered at the gateway. "What? A legend? No, a human, a man. What did they want?" "Give me a chance here, Dad," Finn said, shaking his head free. He looked at Mr. Glad. "How did you think you're the only one who can keep track of gateways," he said, fishing a scanner from inside his jacket and letting water pour from it. "Or I could before our swim. Anyway, I heard a sound like the world was caving in before I even got here. The gateway was gone." "And the man Finn saw?" asked Finn's dad. "I didn't see anyone," said Mr. Glad, standing up again. "But in that fog, anyone could have slipped away easily enough." "Are you absolutely sure you saw someone, Finn? Did you try and stop him? Did you get a shot?" Finn was slumped where he sat, finally feeling life reassert itself in his body. "I did, but I didn't. He got away then." "Yes, he got away," snapped Finn. "After attacking me and throwing me in the sea, Dad. But I'm alive. Thanks for asking." "Is that canister full, Hugo?" asked Mr. Glad. Finn's father lifted it on his belt. "Manticore, just a small one. He hadn't made it too far from the gateway before I got him. Didn't seem worth his while coming through. But he brought this." He held up a crystal. It had the rough shape of a claw. Finn coughed hard, hacking up more foul seawater from his chest. His dad squeezed his shoulders in what was the closest thing to a hug Finn was ever going to get. "Everything will be okay, Finn." "I wouldn't be so sure about that," said Mr. Glad, nodding at the harbour wall, where a trawler was now visible, or rather the remains of a trawler. It was listing violently, its stern a hard, disfigured lump of wood, steel and rope clinging tightly to the puckered edges of the rest of the vessel. Finn's shot had hit a target, but just the wrong one. Further up the road, in the last tendrils of the mist, a dark van pulled away from the pavement. Finn recognised it as the same vehicle that had parked briefly on his street near his house earlier in the week. "Dad, that van!" But then their attention was diverted by the distant blast of a siren and the flashing lights of an approaching police car. "We should go," suggested Finn's dad, and no one disagreed. End of chapter 21. That was exciting, wasn't it? Alright boys, bedtime now, heads down. Love you loads. See you later, alligators. Okay, night night boys. Love you.